Hello and welcome back to the Bearded Dentist. Today we will be seating a bridge. First, we are going to be cutting off the temporary bridge. This patient came to us because his existing bridge broke off and it took a lot of the tooth structure with it, so you will see really wasn't much to work with, but we made it work, made it happen. All of my temporaries are made out of bisacryl. I like bisacryl because it's just easy to work with, simple, easy to um, manipulate and adjust if needed. I seat all of my temporaries with Durlon. Durlon does a couple things. It reduces the sensitivity on the teeth, which just is nice to not have post-ops or patients having complaints about sensitivity. It's also very nice to the gum tissue for these deeper margins and deeper preps. The gum tissue tends to heal around the Durlon instead of being irritated by its presence. I find that a lot of temporary cements often anger the gum tissue and cause a lot of black iron staining. I see zero of that with Durlon. The only problem with Durlon is like this: you need to section every temporary, um, which means you'll need to numb the teeth. I numb every crown seat anyways, just so the patient's comfortable during the appointment, so I don't have to dance around not hurting them or whatever. I can do what I need to do. So section every tooth, and honestly, once you implement this into your protocol, this takes a couple minutes. I mean, really not adding a lot. And I, in about a year's time, have maybe replaced 5 to 10 temporaries, maybe, that have fallen off or broken off. Oftentimes, sometimes you make a temp and you put it on, and you're like, that's not gonna stick. Usually, it's one of those cases. Um, but I do not have, when I was using Temp Bond and other things, I was, at least there would be one temporary cement a day at least. Now I see them once a month, once every other month, maybe. So see, we take that off, no bleeding of the gums. The gum tissue has healed over that area very nicely. And now with the Duralon, what we need to do is remove it. It's very hard to remove unless you use a Cavitron, like you see here. So I love using a Cavitron to do this. It also helps me clean up the gum tissue if there's any debris left in there, any calculus that may have kind of come back or started up. Any stain, sometimes we do get a little bit of stain. Rarely though with the Duralon do we get that black iron staining, but the Cavitron tends to remove it very easily. Um, It's also, and this is going to sound a little weird, but it's also a good way to make sure your buildups are going to stick. You know, sometimes the buildups last for the time the temporary's on there, and then they end up popping out or becoming, dislodging or whatever. So hitting them with a Cavitron, 2 weeks after you placed them in, if that doesn't flick them out, then you generally you've got a good bond, and you can count on it. Because what you don't want is that thing debonding underneath the crown 2 years later, and then the crown pops off, and now you've got an angry patient and a decision to make. So anyways, go around, and again, yes, this takes extra time, but you know what I'm not spending time doing? Replacing temporaries, making new temporaries. Temp material is extremely expensive. My chair time is expensive. Patient's time, we don't have upset, angry patients. And yeah, it takes a few extra minutes to do this part, but patients definitely appreciate it when I explain to them why we're doing what we're doing. And my assistants appreciate not having to remake temps or re-cement temps all the time. So, and as you'll see, there are some bleeding gums here. No big deal. We do our holy triad, the chlorhexidine. I do the chlorhexidine before, I started doing it before this step with the viscostat, because if you swap them, then the chlorhexidine starts precipitating. I'm not sure what's precipitating. I think it's the iron in the quickstat, but something precipitates and it makes both of them not work very well. So if you swap it and you just do the chlorhexidine first, you can really scrub in there and do your thing. So here's the try-in. You can see there's some blanching on the tissue. We want a little bit of blanching. We don't want a lot of bit of blanching. A lot of bit of blanching is going to cause pressure on the tissue. It's going to make It's going to cause some resorption and make some angry gum tissue later. We definitely don't want that. So what we'll do, what I did do off camera, is kind of reduce that pontic a little bit. Once we've done that, once we've gotten everything to where we want it, we do the last two steps, which is going to be the tubeless and the pure bleach. And I believe this is the bleach step. I like to scrub the bleach all over all the tissues all in the area because it just blanket kills everything. A little bit of spot check here, a little bit of bleeding, a little pressure. Make sure we've got that. If you do quick stat after the bleach step, you really got to rinse that out, because if you leave any of that in there, it's going to stain that black. You're going to get that iron staining, especially if the patient's prone to that, especially if you saw it when you took the temp off. If there was iron staining, you leave any of that hemostatic agent there, that's an iron sulfate base or whatever, it's definitely going to stain. So you really got to rinse that out. Good, good, good. Pretty much every tooth you're seeing in this patient's mouth is not a tooth. It's crown in some way. I'll explain that in a second. So we're going to put this this bridge on. We've got it. See a little bit of blanching, not as much as before. We're going to tack either side. Just tack for a quick second. The light is so bright, all it takes is a second or two. Okay, taking a quick look, make sure, looks like we've got it all seated. Then I like to use an Explorer. I don't know, the springiness of the Explorer kind of helps break off those bigger chunks rather than using a scaler at this time. I do not run a piece of floss underneath there at this time because I don't want to risk popping the thing off, so I don't even mess with it. Sorry about the blurriness. I'm kind of on a time crunch getting this off before it starts really setting up. But yeah, I use two motions. I use a push down like I'm doing right here to break it, and then I get underneath it and flick it out if that's necessary. And then what I'll typically do with the Pontics, here's a floss. With the Pontics, instead of flossing them, if I can get my Explorer underneath them and just push it through, I do that instead. Because the floss, like here, right here. Because the floss really, I don't know, I don't get good success with the floss. And the floss ends up just pushing stuff around instead of getting it out. So I prefer to just use the Explorer. And again, this patient's numb. And this is another reason I numb the patient, so I can get in there and do what I need to do and get that stuff out. Because I absolutely do not want to leave any flakes of any cement in there. That is the worst thing you can do. Is you spend all this time, do all this stuff to make the gums nice and happy and healthy, and then you leave a bunch of cement in there. So at the end here, you're going to see the final result, and if you have a keen eye, you will notice that the bridge, the color is slightly off from teeth number 9 and 10. However, that bridge matches every other tooth that has a crown in his mouth. If you look at 11 and 12 there, you can see. So we're eventually going to swap those other two out. But yeah, the shape and shade and everything looked really good. We just need to make sure that we have a a follow-up and finish up those other two to finish off the entire case. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. And if you didn't, let me know why. Have a great day.